How's it going, guys? How are you doing? And welcome to a brand new video tutorial from Udemy. So today we're gonna have a new React framework to jump right into and learn more about. So we're gonna be learning about the cool framework styled components. So this framework is basically a CSS-in-JS framework. There are a lot of them, but React or style components is a kind of a really special framework since it uses template literals to put all of your styles together and make it feel like normal CSS without any hassles or problems. And the other point, actually, it works with any React components. It has a lot of support with React components and global styles and props and stuff like this that does exist on the React ecosystem. So this is basically what we're going to be using or learning today, is actually style components and how you can use them. So simply, style components are CSS-in-JS styling framework that uses some or template tagged literals in JavaScript, and the awesome power of CSS to provide a platform that allows you to write actual CSS to style your React components or your already created React components. Even third-party React components can be styled easily. You can even put like a global styles to not apply specifically to a component but applies globally to the DOM of your web page and stuff. So this is basically what it is and how style components basically works. Now, some of you might ask, why would I use style components and just leave the regular CSS I've been working with for ages for now and just jump right into style components or CSS-in-JS framework? So let me just show you, there are a couple of things actually. There are a lot of reasons you should consider and a lot of reasons you should not consider. So it depends on the situation you're already in, but most of the times it's a great idea to move on into style components. So since style components help you keep the concerns of styling and element architecture separated and make components much more readable. So furthermore, when you have components that rely on JavaScript for their style, or style components give you control of those states back to CSS instead of using a multitude of conditional class names and just putting everything in JavaScript. It looks messy. So you've got your styles in like a separate CSS style file, and you got the actual, I don't know, something like the other logic of manipulating it in JavaScript and so on and so forth, and having props getting in and making everything looks much ugly. So style components comes and fixes the issue of making everything simple in one single component, and it can allow you all to edit and maintain your code from one single source file. So all the CSS, the JavaScript, and the React code is going to be just one single file, source of truth, and you can easily manipulate it however you want. So yeah, this is simply what it would look like, but there are still a lot of reasons why you should consider. Now let's just jump into the installation. It is simple as installing any other React library or third-party components or framework as a style components. So you can just do npm install, or you can even use yarn without any problems. So we're just going to jump into working with that. Here we got a simple React application, so it's just pretty simple, pretty straight to the point. I used create React apps to make this application. The boilerplate project here, I don't have anything new to it. So you do npm install style component and make sure to save it as a dependency, otherwise it won't save it to the package.json, so you need to keep track of it. And then simple as that. So we already did that and already made everything working pretty much fine. So it's pretty simple, pretty easy for installation. It works with any React application. Create React app works with it perfectly. Next or Next works with it perfectly. So yeah, any other React like preprocessor or pretty much any React boilerplate can work with the style components right off the bat. Now let's just go and see how we can create a simple style components from scratch on our application. So here I've got the components folder. So the component folder here has like some reusable components throughout the whole application. So that's where I would like to put them. I've got a link, so I already put that link, which just returns a hyperlink in here, just an 8 elements that renders stuff. So just like a wrapper around it, doesn't really matter that much. Now here I'm gonna be creating a new component, and I'm gonna name our components, create a folder for it, which is gonna be a simple button. So we're gonna create a simple button, and we're gonna use style component to style this button depending on what we need. Instead of using regular CSS and putting class names and IDs, we're just gonna use style components in this case. So I'm gonna do index.jsx, so it's actually the main entry point for it, and I'm gonna simply like import React from React, of course. Now we need to use style components or import style components. I'm going to do import styled, which is like, you know, exports it by default, like exports as the main engine, and I'm going to be importing it from style components. So all these style components are going to be right here, and you can read more about declarations and how you can use them, but it's super simple. Now let's just go create a button wrapper before putting out elements in rendering process. So we can do just const, and I'm going to be creating like a button wrapper. And for the button wrapper in here, I'm going to use a styled, and once I just like, you know, do a dot in here, I can just access like the button dots, you know, button or pretty much anything like div or stuff like this, and you can use it specifically. I don't know about if you're using TypeScript or any other processor rather than Babel, or rather than create React app in here. I don't know, you can actually use it this way, but it's pretty simple. You can use it normally with this one. So I'm going to do style, and I'm going to be using a button. You can have any primitive HTML elements in here, like a div or an A or basically an input. All of them are available in here. So I want a button, of course, like it has the primitive look of a button, of course, and you need to use tagged template string syntax. And for this, you need just like, you know, the backtick, you know, the backtick characters in here instead of single quotes, like not single quotes or not double quotes. You need to use the backtick characters in here, which is like, you know, looks a little bit weird or different than the single quotes. And you just like put that, and this is actually a function just going to be processing the string, and it provides the full CSS functionality. So simple enough. Here between both of these, you can put your own CSS as you normally work with the CSS. And of course, style components uses the stylus CSS preprocessor. It doesn't use like something like class or Sass, but it uses a stylus, and you can easily use the power of stylus in this case, in this particular field. So for the button here, I'm going to be setting like a border to 0. I'm going to be setting like background color. Okay, so background hash color. I'm going to be just simply setting it to white. I'm going to be setting the color to black, so complete black 000. And the font size, just going to be trying to set it to 18 pixels, so it looks a little bit like a bigger button or something. I'm going to use a border radius of let's say 4 pixels. That sounds pretty great. And I'm going to be using a box shadow to make it look, you know, a little bit elegant on immature design. So I'm going to use 0 pixel, 0 pixel, about 8 pixels on the that, and I'm going to use 2 pixels for cascading, and the color. Okay, so I'm going to have 15, 15, 15, and 0.2, just like, you know, a lightweight dark gray or something, and that should look pretty great. Now we got the style component, and this one is going to be a React component. So this function or any other function returns a complete React component that is, you know, having the style that you've put in here, all of it applied to that component. So you can grab this component and render it as any other regular React component. So here you can do export or default, and I'm going to export in a normal functional components, which is going to be a button. And for the button, you're going to have like props, of course. We always do have props. And we simply return the button wrapper right here. So the button wrapper is just going to represent a normal button. And of course, for the button, you would pretty much put something inside of it, like a text, like hello world, or any text around the button. So for this, we would probably just grab the props from the actual browser. So I'm going to do props.children. And simple as that, it should return this, and it should work pretty much fine. Now, if you try to go ahead into the application.javascript and render the simple button that I want, so I'm just going to do button. Make sure to import it from the file that you've put. And for the button in here, I'm going to have a normal text like press me or something. I don't know. Something like, you know, we can use in here. There you go, got a button. As you can clearly see in here, if I try to zoom in, the actual button has the style applied that we try to apply here. The box shadow, the border radius in here, the color of the font size. You can even notice that whenever I change the font and I Control S, it's clear to see the size of the button changes up and down, and so on and so forth. So this is basically how you can use it. You can even use, as I've said, preprocessor things, like you can use the add in here. You can, like, you know, do hover, and whenever you over it, you can do like I don't know, something like RGBA. I don't know, something like having like 50 or thread, 25 and 150 of that. Okay, I don't know, something ridiculous. It's clearly in here. So as probably in here, it's pretty simple, pretty straight to the point. You can put whatever CSS files in here, and you can styles, and you can put them right in the points. Now, for some of you, if you're asking how I got or how I managed to use the interlicense of Visual Studio Code that I'm using, to colorful this one perfectly and matches, like it recognizes as a CSS, not as a string. So clearly in here, applies the color to it and everything. It has the interlicense whenever you type, like you type borders, clearly see grabs the interlicense for me, and so on and so forth. So it uses extension in here. So if you can take a look on extensions, if you type in just styled components extension, as clearly seen here, there is Visual Studio Code style components, which adds the support for that for style components for CSS. So you can just go and install it. It's pretty cool. I love it, and it works pretty great without any bugs or issues. So this is basically how it works, and this is simply how you should create, or you'll be able to create any other one. You can have like hyperlinks in here, a normal div, and so on and so forth. And that's why it's clearly in here. It's much more recognized and organized pretty much, and simple and clean to look at, other than just having normal CSS files or regular CSS files flying around your project. So here you got all of your file or all of your components in a single file with everything you need to edit. But in other case, if you have like got an already put component and you want to like have apply style to it, like an already exist component as this one. So let's say you've got like a third-party components coming up from, I don't know, from another package, like you using a layout package or a UI package, and you basically have got third-party components, but you want to apply specifically some like styles to it, custom styles to it into a particular component from that UI library or UI components package. So how you can do that? Here's clearly here we got an already components. It's just normal or regular React components, a functional components. We just renders an A or hyperlink in here. The hyperlink just gets the props and from it too, and of course it renders chamber in here if you ever wanted to render whatever elements in here, but more specifically it's going to be as a text. So how we can do that, if you simply want to look in here, I'm just going to import this from there really quick. I'm going to do import link from components, and I'm going to be importing from link. So here I want to create this one. So I'm going to do first, I'm going to export style from styled components, and as always, so I'm going to do const, and I'm going to do like custom link, so just give it a different name, and I'm going to use a style, and you can use a style itself as a function. So with a function, you pass in the components you want to give like a custom style, and of course you can use the templates, tags, string, literals, and this is where you apply your style. So you just need to pass in the components that you want to style in here, like whatever component. You can even pass normal divs in here, and it works perfectly as you do this, like you do style.div and the same thing in here. So it's just like pretty easy to work with, and you can pass in whatever React components right over there. Now if you find for the link in here, let's say I'm going to give it like hover color of a completely different hover color. So I'm just going to do over, and you can grab the color, the same color we got in here, over to it, and I don't know, let's say we want to apply some transition to the color about 250 milliseconds, and it's just going to be easy now and as simple as that. So here, if you want to render, make sure to render the custom link that you've created, because that's have got the new style applied to it. So I'm going to do custom link, and I don't know, something like link to or a normal link. But this one won't work specifically because if you take a look on the link in here, what we've got the props. But for the props, what we're doing, we're just passing the props to the href link, and we're passing children's. But style components requires one more thing or one more prop to be passed to the components you want to have like custom styles applied to it. So you need to pass in the class name to it, otherwise it won't work. So you just need to do class name, and you need to grab like prop.class name here, because whenever you apply custom styles to it, like the style function in here, what it does, it's just going to pass in a custom class name with a style that we've put in here, all of it to the actual component. So you need to assign this class name in here, and it's going to be arbitrarily generated by the framework, so you don't have to worry about it specifically. Now if you save that, and make sure to save everything, if you take a look on it, we got the link. As curious in here, whenever we hover over the link, we get completely a different thing. We can just have like a cursor of pointer or something, and should work perfectly. Clear in here, whenever we over it, we get different color, and we got the custom link. If we just try to render up the normal link, and here, so Control S and save it. Clear here, the normal link doesn't have applied that style, it doesn't have the hover effect. But on the other side, for the link, we got the hover effects, and it works perfectly. So this is simply how it works with the style components, and how if you want to create custom styles for it, for custom components. But on the other hand, if you want to pass in props to it, so style components also support props. So what I mean by props, you can easily pass in props to the actual engine in here. So if you have got style, then you got the link, you can pass in props to it, and depending on the props, you can do some manipulation and stuff. So how we can do that, for example, for the button, so I'm just going to jump into the button here because it looks much cleaner. So for the button, if I got, for example, for the color of the fonts, let's say for the color of fonts, if I got, so we still got color here, but we want to include a props, like a variable. So the props, whenever you include variables instead of string literals, this is the syntax. You put a $sign, then you put it, or open curly brace, then you close the curly brace, then between the curly braces you put your whatever syntax, your JavaScript syntax, like 1+1 and so on and so forth. But here it takes a specific function, and for the function in here it takes argument as the prompt that's going to be passed into the actual component or render time. So the props in here, what we're going to be pressing in is we're going to just do the distracting syntax, so the ESX distracting syntax, and we're going to be passing props to this component. So this component can provide the props throughout this particular function or callback function. So the callback function in here, you can provide whatever style depending on the props. For example, we want if the props has I don't know, unique or has clicks. If the button is already clicked, so if it has already clicked thing, what we can do, we can display a blue text. Otherwise, we can just go in and do our normal black text, so a 000. And if it has a clicks, if it clicks is set to true, and of course we are expecting a boolean here, which is going to return blue as a color, so this color can assign blue. Otherwise, we're just going to normally put it as black. So here it depends on the props you're going to be passing to the button. So if we jump back in here, and for the button, if you do clicked, and you can even set this to true, or you can do true in here, or you can even remove it. React has that. It's clear in here, whenever you got clicked, the text changes to blue, and since we already clicked it, so if you get rid of it, as clear as you see, just get rid of it, and applies the old the old black style that you've got in here, or the old black color, and so on and so forth. So it's the same thing, you put it true or not. It depends on what you actually need. So this is how you basically pass in props. You can pass props to do whatever you want. You've got props in here, you can have props for the font size, and if you want to apply custom font size, for example, so you got props, and we're gonna just be simply returning I don't know, if you want, you can do props dot font size. So if we got custom font size, what we can do is we can do props dot font size. So we just apply the font size that we're not applying. Otherwise, so having an issue in here. Okay, so otherwise, just gonna use 18 pixels as always. So here's clear here, without passing anything, because we've got a default value gets applied by default. But if you want to pass whatever you want, you're going to pass a custom font size to it. So the font size is going to be about 13, and as clear you see, the font size changes and applies perfectly, and it uses the font size we've passed in here instead of that. So that's what I was talking about whenever I said you can use props and you can manipulate the CSS as you were working with your JavaScript. So you can pass in props, you can manipulate the CSS however you want, and of course you can pass in the props to the components that you want to render really easy. You can have even states in here assigned to it, or you can grab props from other components, and so on and so forth. So many things, so many tricks you can do with style components. So it looks pretty great and pretty easy to work with the props. Now the final thing you want to cover, or you want to need to learn about style components in order to get started working with it, is how you can apply global CSS styles to it. So for global CSS files, you can easily use a function from that. So for globally, we're going to apply it to a normal single file. So I'm gonna put a single file inside of the src. I'm gonna name it here global styles React.jsx, and here I'm going to be importing a specific function which is create global style from style components. And if you take a look on that, it's clearly seen we've got create a global style, and which allows you to create a global style. So with create global style, we can do like global styles, and we can do create global style. So we put the string, the syntax in here, and you can put whatever. You can put, for example, HTML, and the body can take the full width. There you go, the full height, and no padding whatsoever, or no margin as well whatsoever. And it can apply to that. So make sure just to go ahead and import this. So make sure to export that. Can do export defaults to the global styles in here. So for exporting the defaults, we can just go into the index.jsx and make sure to import that, otherwise it won't work. So import global styles, and make sure to import it, and not only import it, just we need to render it. So we can just jump into the app.jsx because it's much better to render it there. And global styles from global styles, and make sure to render in here. You can render it first or last, it doesn't really mean that. So just like render it and it would work perfectly. So it's clear as in here, the HTML on the body takes the full width and the full height. To see the changes, we can just apply, for example, background color to something like blue or anything like this, or magenta. As clear as see, we got magenta applied to the full CSS. So here you can pass whatever, or you could put whatever global styles you want, like a hyperlink, or you can put an asterisk for all elements on the web page to be applied, and so on and so forth. And you can have like many global styles compiled together, and you can work with them as a normal like CSS files without even having a regular CSS files, and without even caring about CSS files. So everything, all the work is going to be done behind the scenes, using or from the side of style components, without you even touching anything at all. Just you putting your styles and compiling, or pretty much running with React, and there you go, you got everything working pretty much fine. So this is basically how style components works. If you really like this one, you can just go and jump and start working with it right out of the box. It is super easy, super lightweight, and I really love it. Like since I learned about style components, I just never got rid of it, and just never got back into CSS. Still, I got sometimes to it, but whenever you need it, actually, just whenever it is required, but not all the time. Style components is my favorite framework right now when using or when jumping back and forth from CSS and React. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I really hope you guys have enjoyed the video tutorial. Put that like button, or push that like button, and make sure to subscribe, share the video, why not, share the whole channel to get more views. I don't think a lot of people knows about the channel. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys hopefully in the next video tutorial.